The Lotus Sutra. Chapter 25. The Gateway to Every Direction. Manifested by Bodhisattva Perceiver of the Sounds of the World. Translated from the Chinese of Kumarajiva by Tsugunari Kubo and Akira Yuyama. Second Revised Edition. DBET. Thereupon, arising from his seat with his right shoulder bared, Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, faced the Buddha with his palms pressed together and spoke thus to him. O Bhagavat, for what reason is Bodhisattva, perceiver of the sounds of the world, Avalokiteshvara, called perceiver of the sounds of the world? The Buddha answered Bodhisattva inexhaustible intent, saying, O son of a virtuous family, if innumerable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kodis of sentient beings who experience suffering hear of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world, and wholeheartedly chant his name, Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world will immediately perceive their voices and free them from their suffering. Even if those who hold to the name of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world were to enter a great fire, because of this Bodhisattva's transcendent power, the fire would not be able to burn them. If they were adrift on the great waters, by chanting his name, they would reach the shallows. There are hundreds of thousands of myriads of kodis of sentient beings who enter the great ocean to seek such treasures as gold, silver, lapis lazuli, mother of pearl, agate, coral, amber, and pearl. Even if a cyclone were to blow the ship toward the land of Rakshasa demons, they would all become free from the danger of those Rakshasa demons if there were even a single person among them who chanted the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the sounds of the world. For this reason, he is called perceiver of the sounds of the world. If anyone who is about to be beaten chants the name of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world, the sticks and swords will immediately be broken into pieces, and he will be delivered. If the Yaksas and Rakshasas, fearing the great manifold cosmos, come with the intent to afflict the people but hear them chanting, those demons' evil eyes will be unable to see them, so how could they possibly hurt them? If anyone, whether guilty or innocent, is bound with fetters or chains, such bonds will be broken into pieces, and those who have been bound will become free by chanting the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the sounds of the world. When a caravan leader travels on a dangerous road together with his fellow merchants, carrying precious treasures in a great manifold cosmos filled with evil robbers, if there be a single person who says, O sons of a virtuous family, do not fear. You should wholeheartedly chant the name of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world. This Bodhisattva bestows fearlessness upon sentient beings. If you chant his name, you will be free from these evil robbers in it. Now, if those merchants chant loudly in unison, saying, Homage to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the sounds of the world, then, by chanting his name, the caravan will immediately gain deliverance. Inexhaustible intent. The transcendent power of Bodhisattva Mahasattva, perceiver of the sounds of the world, is as great and mighty as this. If there are any sentient beings who are greatly subject to sensual desires, if they contemplate Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world with respect, they will become free from these desires. If there are any sentient beings who often become angry, if they contemplate Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world with respect, they will become free from anger. If there are any sentient beings who are greatly confused, if they contemplate Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world with respect, they will become free from their confusion. O inexhaustible intent! Thus, Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world greatly benefits sentient beings through his transcendent power. For this reason, sentient beings should always turn their thoughts to him. If any woman wanting to have a baby boy pays homage and makes offerings to Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world, she will bear a baby boy endowed with good merit and wisdom. If she wants to have a baby girl, she will bear a beautiful and handsome baby girl who has planted roots of good merit and will have the love of sentient beings. Oh, inexhaustible intent! Such are the transcendent powers of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world that if any sentient being reverently respects him, the merit they achieve will never be in vain. For this reason, sentient beings should hold to the name of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world. Oh, inexhaustible intent! What do you think of someone who holds to the names of the Bodhisattvas equal in number to the sands of 62 kodis of Ganges rivers and pays homage to them with drink and food, clothes, bedding, and medicine? Is the merit of this son or daughter of a virtuous family great or not? Inexhaustible intent answered, saying, O Bhagavat, it is great. The Buddha said, if there is anyone who holds to the name of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world, and anyone who pays homage to him and makes offerings even for a moment, the merit of these two people will be equal, and the same. It will never be extinguished. After hundreds of thousands of myriads of kodis of kalpas. O inexhaustible intent! Those who hold to the name of Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world will attain such benefits of immeasurable and limitless merit. The Bodhisattva inexhaustible intent addressed the Buddha, saying, O Bhagavat, how does Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world wander through this Saha world? How does he teach the Dharma for the sake of sentient beings? What of his power of skillful means? The Buddha said to Bodhisattva, Inexhaustible intent! O son of a virtuous family! If there is any land where sentient beings are to be saved by the form of a Buddha, Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a Buddha. To those who are to be saved by the form of a Pratyeka Buddha, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a Pratyeka Buddha. To those who are to be saved by the form of a Shravaka, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a Shravaka. To those who are to be saved by the form of Brahma, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of Brahma. To those who are to be saved by the form of Chakra, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of Chakra. To those who are to be saved by the form of Deva freedom, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of Deva freedom. To those who are to be saved in the form of Deva great freedom, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of Deva great freedom. To those who are to be saved by the form of the great commander of the Devas, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of the great commander of the Devas. To those who are to be saved by the form of Vaishravana, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of Vaishravana. To those who are to be saved by the form of a minor king, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a minor king. To those who are to be saved by the form of a wealthy man, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a wealthy man. To those who are to be saved by the form of laity, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of laity. To those who are to be saved by the form of a state official, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a state official. To those who are to be saved by the form of a Brahmin, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a Brahmin. To those who are to be saved by the form of a monk, nun, layman, or laywoman, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a monk, nun, layman, or laywoman. To those who are to be saved by the form of a wife of either a wealthy man, a householder, a state official, or a Brahmin, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of such a wife. To those who are to be saved by the form of a boy or a girl, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of a boy or a girl. To those who are to be saved by the form of a human or of a non-human, such as a deva, naga, yaksa, gandharva, asura, garuda, kimnara, or mahoraga, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into any of these forms. To those who are to be saved by the form of Vajrapani, he teaches the Dharma by changing himself into the form of Vajrapani. O inexhaustible intent! This bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world displays such qualities, wanders through many lands in various forms, and saves sentient beings. For this reason, you should wholeheartedly pay homage to bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world. This bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world bestows fearlessness in times of fearful calamity. For this reason, everybody in this Saha world calls him giver of fearlessness. The bodhisattva inexhaustible intent addressed the Buddha, saying, "O Bhagavat, I shall now pay homage to bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world." He then took from his neck a many-jeweled necklace worth hundreds of thousands of gold coins, gave it to him, and said, "I entreat you to accept this rare jeweled necklace for the Dharma." At that time, bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world did not dare to receive it. Inexhaustible intent addressed bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world, saying, "I entreat you to accept this necklace out of pity for us." Then the Buddha said to bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world, "You should accept this necklace out of pity for such humans and non-humans, as this bodhisattva inexhaustible intent, the fourfold assembly, devas, nagas, yaksas, ganarvas, asuras, garudas, kimnaras, and mahoragas." The bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world accepted the necklace out of pity for the fourfold assembly, devas, nagas, humans, non-humans, and the rest. He then divided it into two parts and gave one part to the Buddha Shakyamuni and the other part to the stupa of the Buddha Many Treasures. O inexhaustible intent! With such inherent transcendent powers, bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world wanders throughout the Saha world. Thereupon, bodhisattva inexhaustible intent asked a question in verse, saying, "O Bhagavat, endowed with excellent marks, I now wish to ask you about him once again. For what reason is the heir of the Buddha named perceiver of the sounds of the world?" The Bhagavat, endowed with excellent marks, answered inexhaustible intent in verse, "Listen to the practices of perceiver of the sounds of the world, which have their application to all. His vow is deep like the ocean, and his kalpa is of inconceivable length. After having attended many thousands of kodis of Buddhas, he made a great pure vow. I will now explain it to you in brief. If you hear his name, see his body, or contemplate him in thought, your life will not be in vain, and you will extinguish all suffering. If anyone wants to hurt you and pushes you into a great fire pit, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, the fire pit will change into a pond. If you drift upon the great ocean and meet danger from dragons, fish, and demons, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, you will not be swallowed by the waves. If you are on the peak of Sumeru and are pushed by somebody, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, you will stay suspended in the air like the sun. If any evil one chases you and pushes you from Mount Diamond, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, not even a single hair will be hurt. If evil robbers surround you, each with a sword and the intent to harm, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, the thought of mercy will awaken in them. If you suffer under the punishment of a king, and your life is to be ended by execution, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, the sword will be immediately broken into pieces. If you are imprisoned with a neck chain, your hands and feet fettered? If you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, they will be unlocked and you will be released. If anyone wants to hurt your body with a curse or poison, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, these ills will return and afflict their authors. If you meet evil Rakshasas, poisonous dragons, or demons, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, they will not dare to hurt you. If you are surrounded by evil animals, whose teeth and claws are fearfully sharp, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, they will run away swiftly and to an immeasurable distance. If they're lizards, snakes, vipers, or scorpions, whose breath is poisonous like a flaming smoke, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, they will turn away swiftly at the sound of your voice. If thunder resounds, lightning flashes, hail falls, and a great rain pours out of the clouds, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, they will disappear immediately. If sentient beings are in great adversity and immeasurable pain afflicts them, the wonderful power of the wisdom of perceiver of the sounds of the world can relieve the suffering of the world. Endowed with transcendent powers, and having fully mastered wisdom and skillful means in all the worlds of the 10 directions, there is no place where he will not manifest himself. The suffering of those in the troubled states of being, hell dwellers, hungry ghosts, and animals, and the suffering of birth, old age, illness, and death, will gradually be extinguished. He who perceives the world with truth, purity, and vast knowledge, and with benevolence and compassion, should be ever longed for and looked up to. He is a spotless, pure ray of light, and a sun of wisdom that destroys the darkness and withstands the flames and winds of calamity. He brilliantly illuminates the entire world. His will, the essence of which is compassion, shakes like thunder, and the mind of mercy is like a beautiful overspreading cloud which pours the Dharma rain of immortality and extinguishes the flame of desires. In a dispute before judges or fearful in the midst of battle, if you contemplate the power of perceiver of the sounds of the world, all enemies will flee away. He has a wondrous voice, the voice of one who perceives the world, a voice like Brahma's, a voice like the rolling tide, a voice unsurpassed in this world. For this reason, you should always contemplate him. You should have no doubt, even for a moment. The pure seer perceiver of the sounds of the world will be a refuge when suffering distress or the misery of death. He is endowed with every quality, sees the sentient beings with his benevolent eyes, and his ocean of merit is immeasurable. For this reason, you should pay him homage. At that time, Bodhisattva Earth Holder arose from his seat, went before the Buddha, and said to him, O Bhagavat, if there are any sentient beings who hear of this chapter, Bodhisattva perceiver of the sounds of the world, and the effortless were the ki inai, the astids, the manifestation of the gateway to all directions and the transcendent powers, know that their merit will not be little. When the Buddha taught the chapter, the gateway to every direction, the thought of incomparable Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi awoke in 84,000 sentient beings in the assembly.